the news.
Good evening, this is the BBC World Service. Tonight, we will continue on with our analysis of the battle for the Asia Pacific. As many of our listeners will know, the Japanese have been ferocious in their attacks on the Allied-held territories. On December 8, 1941, the Japanese had captured Shanghai. A few hours later, it was reported that Kota Bharu in Malaya was taken over. An hour later, Pearl Harbor was bombed. On December 10th, the Prince of Wales and Repulse battleships were sunk. On February 15th, 1942, Singapore fell. And on the 19th of February, Darwin, the northernmost frontier of Australia, was bombed. On a positive note, as a result, the Americans have joined the Allies, and with our Australian troops, have recently managed to halt the Japanese wave. Many of our viewers have been asking about how the civilian women and children are faring at this time. We now know about 3,000 women and children have been evacuated to the southern regions of Australia at the behest of the Australian War Office.
Oh, darling.
Mom,
Yes?
how long are we going to be gone?
Possibly for a few years, but at least till the end of the war.
But what about my Aboriginal friends?
Well, they haven't been asked to leave yet, and I imagine that they'll probably have to stay for the duration of the war. They've lived on the land for thousands of years, so I guess that will be okay. And they'll be looking after our homes while we're away. Well, the ship doesn't leave Broome until 5 o'clock, which it's 4:45 now. I guess we probably should get our way to the ship. And we're going to Perth.
Viewers will recall, last week, Margaret Somerville and 95 native wards ranging from 4 years to 15 years of age had been left behind on Croker Island during the evacuation of Darwin. The group was stranded at the Anglican Native Mission on Croker Island. Through their resourcefulness, the group have managed to cross the Arafura Sea to the mainland. Miss Margaret, do we have to cross the river?
Charlie, we have to get across the river somehow.
But it's croc infested.
Well, what about if we go west?
If we do that, it'll just take longer. We'll have to go through wetlands, jungles.
Well, we can't stay here, Charlie. The problem is that you've seen the planes flying every day, and they're bombing up and down the highway. We need to get to Pine Creek. We don't have any other choice. And I need you to help me, Charlie.
That region is my father's traditional home, so...
Okay. Well, we better get going then.
Hey Charlie, do you think this is a good tucker?
Yeah, my Mirmina used to give it to me. It was delicious.
You remember your memory now?
Yeah. How about you? Do you remember your family?
No, I don't remember meeting them. I don't remember my memory. I don't remember anybody. Hey Auntie, you think this is a good tucker?
Oh, Rosie, that's marvellous. If it wasn't for you kids, we'd have been starved by now.
Just recapping on the Croker Island exodus. It has taken the party 44 days to walk to Pine Creek, crossing 2 crocodile-infested rivers, dangerous wetlands, dense jungle, and pristine woodlands to reach Pine Creek. The group reported that they saw Japanese planes flying overhead, dropping bombs near Catherine. The party, led by Margaret Somerville, have now been transported in cattle trucks for more than 4,000 kilometres to New South Wales. Otford. Thankfully, everyone has arrived safely and in fine health. The children are now staying at the Crusader Movement homestead and are now attending Otford's public schools. Now, the battle for the Asia Pacific in the eyes of our Australian and American soldiers in the region. In May of this year, the Battle of the Coral Sea has resulted in the Japanese war machine retreating. In June, the Battle of Midway has effectively stopped the possibility of New Zealand being invaded. Now, our Australian soldiers have turned their attention to recapturing of Papua New Guinea and the Dutch East Indies. As many of you will recall, last week we met Jimmy Walker and Tom Cole, two Australian diggers. Tom and Jimmy are on the run behind enemy lines.
Geez, that wound's healed well. What'd you put on that, Jackie?
Listen, Louis, I prefer that you call me Jimmy, since I've saved your life.
Oh, sorry, Jimmy, didn't mean that. So, why are you fighting this war?
Well, my uncles fought in the Great War. They tried to earn some land back, but they didn't succeed. They're still fighting over it now. So I tried to come in this war and earn some land back.
So how many of your mob fighting?
About 3,000.
Well, they must be bloody Japs.
No, that's my cousin, Leonard Waters. He still owes me a beer.
What, your cousin's a pilot?
Yeah, only Aboriginal Australian pilot in this war. Still owes me a beer. We went to this bar in Brisbane, and they refused to serve us, even though we were in our army uniform, and we were going off to war to fight for them.
That's no good, Jackie. You're my mate, I'll buy you a beer.
That marks the end of our coverage of the battle for the Pacific for this week. My name is Richard Briggs, and this is the BBC, your trusted news service. I hope you will join me again next week to gain more insight into the fight for our Commonwealth. Good night.